My speech is over the legalization of assisted suicide. I know this is a really touchy subject for a lot of people, and it's something I'm passionate about and have studied. Before I go into why it should be legal, I'll tell you why it's personal and important to me. My Uncle Kent, who is 50, he has 4 kids and is the most generous person I've ever met. He's accomplished a lot throughout his life and has gave his wife and kids everything they've ever wanted. But at the young age of 35, he had his first heart attack. He survived it, but he has had nothing but troubles since then. He's had way more doctor visits over the years than he'd like. He's had 2 more heart attacks in the last 15 years since then. The last one was pretty recent, just a couple months ago, and probably the most eye-opening. He went to go visit his son and left his house around midnight by himself. His wife was already asleep by then, and she woke the next morning to him not being there. She called my cousin Blaine to see if he fell asleep there, and he hadn't. They immediately went to go look for him, just to find his car in a ditch, with him being unresponsive. He had filled out a DNR after the last one, so none of us knew what was going to happen for days. They told us if he woke up, he wouldn't be the same. We waited about 2 days for him to wake up, and luckily he pulled through, but he can't do anything by himself. The doctors were right, and he hasn't been the same. It's changed the way he looks at life, and he doesn't think it's worth living. He doesn't want his friends and family to see him the way he is now. You can tell he's suffering and depressed. He said it should have been his time, and that it's not fair for him to have to live through this. Literally, as I was recording the speech this first time, I got a message from him because of a post I made on Facebook about wanting to move to Arizona with my sister. He reminded me that life was short and I'm young. He said to pursue whatever my heart desires and that I can always return home whenever. Whether assisted suicide should be legal or not, it's one of the biggest debates today. Many people fear death and question the afterlife. For some people, escaping reality and ending it all is a better solution than what they're going through. If someone is terminally ill, they should have the option of assisted suicide. Giving the option for assisted suicide might save patients from the stress of traveling, and assisted suicide may relieve patients from suffering, and assisted suicide can greatly reduce unnecessary financial burdens. For those of you that don't know what assisted suicide is, it is the suicide of a patient suffering from an incurable disease or illness, and the doctor gives the patient lethal drugs to assist them in their death. If a terminally ill patient wants to end their life, they will travel to a place that will allow it. As of 2015, the red states, assisted suicide is legal in Oregon, Vermont, and Washington. The orange states are legal, but it has to be court-ordered, which is New Mexico and Montana, and the yellow ones mean the bill has been filed, and the white has made no act. So there's a lot of states that don't allow it, and people are traveling far distances to get the job done, and I found that all in Batchman age 2018. The patient's friends or family might not be able to travel with them or be there for them when their time comes. Doctors are also helping with suicides under the table or illegally to save the patient from traveling somewhere to get it done where it is legal. They shouldn't have to travel for something that should be their right, and they should be granted that one last wish. If assisted suicide was an option, it would relieve patients from suffering, and I found that in Brody, 1993. Some people would rather be dead than live like a vegetable, and pain is often unbearable and can last for years. They would rather be able to plan and make that decision before they are not capable. And the death of the patient might ease the pain for the family as well. It might spare some patients that are suffering from committing suicide in a gruesome way, leaving someone to find them. It could at least be planned and thought out and give the friends and family a chance to give their one last goodbye. With assisted suicide being illegal, people are trying everything they can to end the pain, and I found that in Brody, 1993. For instance, there was a mother who has had cancer who tried killing herself multiple times in many different ways. Every time she was unsuccessful, it caused her more pain and suffering, and she eventually lost half of her body weight. Her son had to see how this was torturing her, and it tore her family apart watching her go through this rather than her being able to go in peace. Doctors back in the day would have never supported that, and over time they have been more open-minded to see why people would make that kind of decision. And some doctors will risk their careers and may face prosecution to help perform assisted suicide. Assisted suicide may reduce financial expenses that might be unnecessary, and I found that in Meyer and Barber in 1999. If assisted suicide was legal, it would be a cheap, easy way to get out of healthcare costs. Assisted suicide may lower the amount of people filing bankruptcy because they cannot afford their medical bills. For some people, if the person commits suicide, the family cannot collect life insurance. However, the family can collect life insurance if they undergo assisted suicide. Terminally ill patients should be able to choose the option of assisted suicide, and they should be allowed the right to die. I know some people would look at this as a cowardly decision, and we don't know what they're going through. I'm not saying it should be a first option, because it should be a last resort. Of course, I'd want them to fight for their life, but if what they're going through is unbearable and they can't stand the pain another day, I know I wouldn't want my family to keep suffering. It's definitely not an easy decision, and I'm sure people don't want to be sick or die. But to them, not living would be better than what they're going through, and we probably don't know what we would do if we were in their shoes.